From Kroll, you're listening to the Security Concepts Podcast, the podcast where Kroll brings in our practitioners and partners to discuss risk in all its forms. On episode 18, we are bringing in two regulars, Matthew Dumpert and Nick Doyle, to chat about some early lessons learned while helping our clients prepare for and respond to business continuity and employee safety impacts resulting from the current conditions in Ukraine. Many companies with robust supply chain and business continuity controls in place still found themselves tested by largely unprecedented occurrences not foreseen in their plans. We've routinely found that the companies with the most proactive approach to both testing their programs and gathering data to be the best prepared to respond to the unexpected. Matt and Nick, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Jeff, and pleased to be on with you.
Thank you, Jeff. Happy to be talking with you and Nick on this topic.
Great. I want to dive right in with what I think is a very important aspect of this, and we'll start with one of the largest needs we've seen from our clients, that being the need for current, vetted, and focused information. I've seen some samples of the daily updates Kroll has been producing. Can you briefly go over the data gathering process and the content going into those documents?
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. Yeah, it's been a really busy few months, especially responding to our clients that have operations in Ukraine or had operations in Ukraine, but also for clients that have got operations on the countries on the outside of Ukraine, such as Hungary, Poland, and Romania, because anything that's happening in Ukraine is going to affect those countries. So it's key that clients with business operations in that region understand the impacts of this war. And actually, before the war actually started, or the invasion started, about what those impacts could be, because this helps clients anticipate the problems that may occur. And in terms of actually the information we're gathering for these clients, we're looking at setting a risk picture, which is an important thing. And part of setting that risk picture is understanding the triggers that they may need to identify to make informed decisions. So we're working on pretty much a traffic light system where we identify triggers and how much they've been impacted at that time. And that helps clients make those informed decisions. And we're looking at military risks, we're looking at geopolitical risks, we're looking at diplomatic areas, what's being discussed. We're covering the whole spectrum of risk management and understanding that data and analysing that data and then putting it out in a very compact report that clients can understand. But importantly, after that report is we're attending crisis management meetings where clients have the opportunity to ask us questions, and they've been received very, very well by our client base.
Yeah, having seen the work that Nick's team is doing and the people that we have on the ground in Eastern Europe are doing and the information that they're providing, I can tell you it's second to none, and it's really helping inform clients on the critical decisions they're making related to the protection and the safety of their people, their facilities, and their brand. The continuity and resiliency plans of even the most robust corporate partners are strained and they're being put to the test. And Jeff, as you mentioned in the introduction, those who are well prepared, well oiled, and pragmatically practiced are faring better than others. Of course, we're helping our clients throughout the various spectrum of preparedness. But I can tell you the revenue loss and the reputation loss and all the things that we're trying to help protect our clients from is being much more successful with those who have the robust planning, have practiced their continuity and resiliency plans, and use those plans in such a way that it's not necessarily checking a box or having a binder on the shelf that, yeah, right, we've got the continuity and resiliency plan, but it's those that have actually practiced it and put it to the stress test. So real kudos to Nick and his team for the work that they're doing on the ground, providing real actionable information, answering the compelling questions that our clients ask to inform their processes in the region. And it really just highlights the need for that robust continuity and resiliency planning.
One of the clients we did work with, or are working with in Ukraine, they approached us around their business continuity and resilience plan. So they already had a very, very basic plan, but it was nowhere near sufficient to support their organization. So what we did, working with that client, is developed a time frame of literally 10 days where we worked 20 hours a day to hold remote meetings with that client, stakeholders within their business, develop a business continuity plan. That's so it can be delivered in that 10-day phase, because we knew time was short potentially, and that the possibility of an invasion by Russia into Ukraine was probably not that far away. So we had to start work dynamically to deliver that business continuity plan. And all kudos to the client. They shown sufficient foresight to engage us to do this type of work at that time.
Yeah, that foresight, Nick, I think is really important to highlight, because we find throughout our client base and throughout those partners that we work with some common themes throughout their resiliency and continuity planning, and many have the banner threats to continuity well covered. But really, in this day and age, it's incumbent upon all of us in the security, in the safety, in the continuity and resiliency field to take a step back and really assess what are the unique potential threats to enterprise that we now need to plan for. Whether it's threats to sovereignty, whether it's threats of natural disaster in areas that previously weren't as significantly impacted, whether it's denial of service attacks or ransomware attacks or a litany of other cyber-related incidents. It's really, really important and incumbent upon us in the field, working with our partners within our client base, working with the executives within their organizations, to identify these new and emerging threats to business, threats to continuity, threats to resiliency. Even just with the decentralized nature of workforces because of the global COVID pandemic, continuity and resiliency plans are stretched so thin. There's clearly benefits to having that decentralized work from home hybrid work environment, but there's also real stressors, and the continuity plan, the resiliency plan that we have prepared, if we don't dust it off from time to time and look at it through the real-time lens and the modern day lens, we can be caught ill prepared. And it's being demonstrated here now. Those clients that have taken that proactive approach, that have engaged Nick and his colleagues and others throughout Kroll to take a look at these things, are faring far better. I can say that absolutely.
Just to add to that, I think companies have put a lot of work in and a lot of preparation into managing the pandemic in the last couple of years. And now we've got the geopolitical risk, a war afoot in a part of Europe. 2-3 years ago, no one would have foreseen them issues as likely issues to build their business resilience around. But so what we're now seeing is the things that were unlikely then 2 or 3 years ago are now more likely. So this has to be redressed amongst many client organizations. They have to revisit their business resilience, business continuity plans, because things have changed and they will have to change their plans as well.
Excellent point. Demonstrated acutely by ripple effects that we're seeing now too, as a result of the violence in Ukraine and the disruption to food supply, critical supplier of food for entire regions and staple food items. There's these ripple effects when you have threats to sovereignty, when you have civil unrest, civil disobedience, when you have refugees in the millions fleeing a country. Of course, we could not have foreseen this years ago, but it's incumbent upon us to think about those ripple effects as well. Nick mentioned those partners in Eastern Europe regionally, but the ripple effects are being felt throughout the world with supply chain disruptions, with displaced persons, with now low-level civil disobedience and civil unrest as a result of food shortages and increases in crime as a result of food shortages. So it's really important to take, I won't say, maybe it's a creative look at continuity and resiliency, but it's learning from these experiences and learning what those other ripple effects might be and working that back into your business planning.
So a business plan that is proactive, really adjustable on a given nature, and ability to fluidly respond to the rather fluid threat nature of today's world is one that is going to be the most successful and the easiest to implement and oversee. When we really come down to what we're seeing with this in the world and the ability to prepare for the next big crisis, what are some key indicators that businesses should be aware of? We've already talked a little bit about the great need for information. Are there any others that we really should put at the forefront for people to monitor as they approach the next crisis?
Well, I think we should be looking and advising clients to look at how their supply chain risk is impacted by what's going on with these events in Ukraine and elsewhere. So that would be a key area I would say clients need to focus on.
Certainly supply chain, certainly risk, also assessing their ability with this new remote work, this new decentralized nature, while that plays, and I indicated that earlier, while it plays into continuity and resiliency, right? Having a decentralized workforce, because then no one incident, no one event is likely to disrupt an entire workforce. But what we've found is sometimes critical functions are performed by a small group of people. So it's taking a critical look at where those people are, how reliant they are on local infrastructure, and if there's a disruption to that local infrastructure, i.e. power, water, internet, how devastating that could be to a business enterprise. If those personnel are performing critical functions and we conduct the business impact analysis and we recognize that their functions are so critical to the continuity of the organization, we need to think creatively on how to replicate, duplicate, or otherwise backstop what they're doing. And we're learning that here in real time. And if we don't capture these lessons learned, I fear we'll be in a no better place than we were. So, learning these lessons, applying them to future continuity and resiliency. And I can tell you that, our global clients are feeling these pressures and seeing them in various regions throughout the world. It really helps us understand how major organizations are dealing with these problems globally and frankly, learning from one another. One of the things I've been very impressed with over the last 2.5 years is the resiliency and the creativity of us as a people and our business partners. I'm confident that there's not a hurdle we can't clear, but you have to have smart, talented, pragmatically thinking people applying their skills to these problems.
And I'll just go back onto that as well in terms of risk monitoring. Risk monitoring allows companies to quickly identify issues and risks that they can react to and anticipate. I think I mentioned this earlier in the podcast, but the risk monitoring aspect of understanding where the areas of issue or areas of concern are going to impact your organization, to have advanced notice of that by getting regular risk monitoring, that is a key element, I believe.
Absolutely, Nick. And you're seeing it yourself in this acute instance. There's no shortage of information, but highly curated, actionable, reliable information, separating out the noise from the actionable information that we can then provide to decision makers to ultimately make serious decisions about people, property, and reputation. That to me is the cornerstone of what we do. And without that highly curated, highly actionable information that you get from the field, that you consolidate through various collection mechanisms, some human, some technical, without that information, we can't have confidence in the decisions we're making. So just to amplify what Nick said, being able to digest highly, highly actionable and curated information and being able to separate that information from noise, from disinformation campaigns, from trolling activities, that to me in this day and age is absolutely critical. And providing that information to decision makers is really the only way to make truly informed decisions on matters of life safety and security and brand reputation.
Well, thanks for coming on the podcast and discussing this with us.
Yep, thanks for having me on, Jeff.
Hey, Jeff, I want to invite listeners to go to Kroll.com, where not only our individual business units, but also the Kroll Institute is putting out a lot of good thought leadership and a lot of good content on the crisis in Ukraine, the ripple effects it's having across markets, and working again through the Kroll Institute and our chief economist and other experts within Kroll's ranks, really putting out good content. So I invite our listeners to go to Kroll.com and check out the material we're putting out on this Ukraine crisis.
This has been episode 18 of Kroll Security Concepts podcast. Thanks for tuning in, and remember to subscribe on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. On our next episode, we're going to be covering port security, which has been a big topic around the Kroll offices these days.